Good afternoon. Welcome back to another team news live stream. Not many game weeks to go, and this feels like an important week where there was lots and lots of kind of stuff that happened in 32, injuries, goalkeepers missing, and all that kind of stuff. And lots of worries going in today. Some of what we have good news for you, and some of which is still a bit of bad news, I'm afraid, as always. But we'll come on to all that in just a second. Neale, how are you feeling today?
All right, Andy. Yeah, I thought I'd have a quieter afternoon, but with it being a blank game week and four teams not playing, but I've been as busy as ever with a array of updates, not the Premier League, but there's also a couple of EFL Cup final presses as well, which we might cover later on.
Yeah, I've definitely got them down, especially the Spurs one, because obviously Harry Kane in particular is a big worry. Man City maybe not so much. I put them a bit further down the list, but we'll get to it all anyway as usual. So do give it a like if you enjoy it. Where to start? Let's just start with Liverpool. So I think before the press conference, I think the general gist was that people thought Phillips was going to be fine and that Jota was going to be out. But since the press conference, it's the complete opposite, right?
It is. It's the other way around. Phillips cited in training, and Jota not. And it turns out that, as you said, it's Phillips who's out with the minor hamstring injury he had last week. And Jota's absolutely fine, apparently. I don't know where the rumours started. I mean, obviously we know he wasn't cited in the training ground photos, but all that stuff about him doing his ACL and being out for the season, I wonder who's responsible for that. But apparently, according to Klopp, we're taking him for his word, he's absolutely fine. So no flag, and he's good to go. It's just whether he starts against Newcastle.
Yeah, and I have heard a certain team news genius called Neale say before that missing training doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to miss a match. I think I even saw someone tweet about the same thing happening with Mane missing a match. They took the captaincy off him and then he got 12 points against Fulham. So, yeah, I mean, I had to watch this press conference because I just really wanted to see the Jota news. And yeah, Diogo is fine. Diogo is fine. He even said it twice. So hopefully he's okay. I mean, for a start, I guess we don't really have too much clue about whether that's going to happen, right? I suppose the only one of the front four we could almost guarantee is going to start. It's got to be Salah, right? Because he fully rested. Well, not fully rested, but didn't start last week.
Yeah, precisely. It's kind of followed a neat little pattern lately of one being benched and the other one coming straight back in the following week. So I think it's Firmino's turn. I'll have to check the little matrix,
Well, that would be good
the
for Jota.
rotation matrix. Yeah.
I,
I mean, of course, he could also start all four, which he hasn't done yet in a little while. We have seen it this season on occasion, especially when they're chasing games. But yeah, we've seen him play a 4-2-3-1 before, so it would be a kind of fixture where you would try it. I guess it won't be Newcastle. So there's a possibility that we might see all four on the pitch. But Klopp did actually briefly touch on this subject earlier in his press conference when he was talking about how he picks his front three from that quartet, and he said it's at this time of the season it's good to rotate when the fixtures are coming thick and fast. Although they're not quite as thick and fast anymore because the Premier League is all Liverpool have got now, so it's kind of just one a week until the end of the season.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I mean, it is Newcastle, so even though Neil's here, I will say it's one of the easiest fixtures probably in the league at the moment. Obviously, one thing just to kind of point out: if Phillips is out, there is a big chance that Fabinho plays centre back again. I would assume, and we have seen them struggle maybe a little bit. I personally don't think it's going to change my mind too much on Salah and Jota, but yeah, got to be a chance of that happening, right?
Yeah, I know they've got other options. I mean, Davies hasn't had much of a look in yet, has he? The other January signing, and they've got Reece Williams as well. But it was Fabinho dropped back into the back four last week when Phillips was missing. So it looks like it's going to be the same again. I would think.
Cool. All right. Well, that's the big news. Let's get on to the minor thing with Spurs and Harry Kane missing. Obviously, didn't play the second game in the double game week. He went off with, I think it was an ankle injury, wasn't it? And we still don't know, basically. Obviously, he's going to miss out in game week 33 anyway because it's a blank. But a lot of people are obviously worried about 34 and beyond, because especially with Jamie Vardy doing all right last night. So what's the latest on Kane?
Yeah, it's annoying really because I think a lot of us would have liked either a clean bill of health today or a ruling out of about 4 or 5 weeks, which would have made an easier sell because we kind of want him back, don't we, for game week 34 because they're home to Sheffield United. But Mason was almost Solskjaer-esque in his update. I guess he's being genuine in this case because they don't know if he's going to be able to play against Man City in the EFL Cup final. He hasn't trained as of today, so that's a full week on from the Everton game. when he first sustained his injury. Mason said they're going to have more of an idea tomorrow, see if they can get him back on the pitch. It'll be a joint decision between him, medical staff, and Kane himself as to whether he's going to play. But Mason was quite downbeat, I think, about his chances. He said that even if he does train tomorrow, 8 days away from the training ground, not having any fitness work, and then all of a sudden you're thrust straight back into the team. And now Harry Kane's not a naturally fit guy, but Mason did mention that in his presser that it would be a hard ask, even if he does make it on the grass tomorrow.
Yeah, and I guess if he's not even been on the pitch yet, I mean, game week 34, there's more likelihood. I suppose the only thing to say for anyone that's thinking about selling him is obviously Sheffield United is the key fixture next week. They do have Leeds in 35 as well. So I guess it all comes down to whether or not how much you want to captain him in game week 34, because Man United are playing Liverpool, so that kind of takes out a few captain options. So then you're like Son, maybe Iheanacho against Southampton. So that's the kind of things I'd be considering. But there is a chance, I suppose, but we're not going to know until this time next week. So it's almost like a bit of a gamble. How else are Spurs looking outside of Kane? Any major news there?
Not as far as I'm aware. Doherty was back in training ahead of the Southampton game, actually, but didn't feature, so I guess he could be in the shake-up. But I think their only real absentee, as far as I know, is Davies. But of course, we will find out more next week before they play again in 34.
Absolutely. All right, let's go on to Leeds. So this is, like I said at the start, there's some good news, there's some bad news. This is definitely the bad news section. Rafinha, who I don't know, I just had this feeling he was going to play last week. He wasn't even on the bench, and he still hasn't trained, right? So there's no chance he plays this week.
Well, he's not quite 100% ruled out, as I've seen other outlets report. Bielsa didn't unequivocally say he wouldn't feature, but it looks highly doubtful. I mean, he hasn't, as you said there, he hasn't trained. According to Bielsa, he uses this word evolution every week. He says we're controlling his evolution on a daily basis. So that's obviously just assessing him every day to see where he's at. But yeah, if you haven't trained and it'll be 2 weeks, won't it? Because it was the Man City game, where he sustained it. 2 weeks without training, and then all of a sudden you're playing Man United. So yeah, he think he's 25% in FPL, which just sort of shows you what chances are of him featuring. I think Rodrigo is definitely out with a muscular problem, and Cooper is obviously still suspended as well. But other than that, I think they're all good. I heard Bamford today about throwing up in his mouth because he was blowing up of his backside so much during that game that he was so tired that he was vomiting internally. So, but he's fine.
The Man United game, was it?
I think he maybe talked about the Fulham game. I can't remember when it was. I just saw him on it. He appears on the Leeds podcast every week, but he was talking about how he's mentioned this before, but how much Bielsa puts him through in terms of workload and running around. And yeah, he said he was sick in his mouth.
Lovely.
One of the recent games. Yeah.
And I guess without Rafinha, it's probably a bit. I know, like they're all super workers. They all do loads of running, but I feel like Rafinha is everywhere. So without him on the pitch, it's probably that added little bit more running to do as well. So yeah, okay. Well, hopefully he doesn't throw up this weekend. Although I sold him last week, so there we go. Okay, another injury potential. Well, one that we saw go off last week was Jesse Lingard. I mean, they did say at the time they were hoping it was just cramp, but when he went off, and I think Moyes was interviewed after the game, they said they didn't know. But it looks like he's another one that's been past fit this week and should be fine.
Yeah, the word fine was even used by Moyes today. Lingard, as you said there, hence the lack of a flag. When it's cramp, then nothing goes on. Obviously, he wasn't entirely sure at the time, so it could have been something else, but he's trained this weekend, and Moyes has given him a clean bill of health this morning, so unless something else happens in the next 24 hours, he should be all right. The usual suspects, I think, are still out. Rice, Antonio. Cresswell could be back. Moyes said he was getting closer and he's going to be assessed. Masuaku, I saw ex-West Ham employee saying he could be back for this as well. No time frame mentioned today by Moyes, but previously he said he was hoping to get him back very quickly. So both of those could be back, although still doubts. But the big one, yeah, as you said, Lingard is fine.
Good stuff. And talking, obviously, I mentioned at the start of the show about the amount of goalkeepers that were benched this week. I think Leno, Mendy, and Forster all didn't feature. I mean, Forster was probably the least surprising, just because I know he's played quite a bit, but obviously we have seen McCarthy play a bit too. But Mendy missing out. I mean, to be fair, Tuchel did tell us, it just after the deadline that he told us, so it was a little bit of a problem. But being the good man he is, he's told us the opposite this week, right? We expect him to start.
Yeah, great news. If you've got Mendy like I have, he's going to start this weekend. This isn't the first time he's done this. He did this previously when kept a clean sheet. Was after the Barnsley game. It was the FA Cup, I think. And then he was handed the following league game as a start as well. So it's a growing plague amongst Premier League clubs. You've seen him at Everton, haven't we? Pickford and Olsen rotating very occasionally. Arteta giving Ryan a start over Leno, and now Southampton and Chelsea joining in the fun as well. So yeah, but the good news is he's going to play, especially if you've got the Mendy forced to double up as I have. Obviously, Southampton aren't playing in 33, so you're relying on Mendy starting, and it looks if we're taking him at his word, he's gonna start this weekend. But it is a worry, I suppose, going from now to the end of the season, and any given game week, you might just suddenly decide to throw Kepa back in as a reward, as he called it in today's presser. So yeah, you can't even rely on any goalkeepers for starts these days. What has this come to?
I know Chelsea just don't concede too many goals in general, but I don't think Kepa's conceded yet under Tuchel. I think that's so. Yeah, kept clean sheets all around. So there might not be the last time. I'm sure everyone's now wishing they could go back to Martinez. It's a shame he didn't punish everyone against Man City, but maybe against West Brom he will. Nothing else major from Chelsea.
Just Kovacic. He's the only absentee. Anyone else is fit.
Good stuff. Let's go on to Leicester. So, there was actually a few concerns, I would say, from Leicester. One, there's quite a few things, actually. One, Ricardo Pereira didn't start, so will he come back in? If that happens, what happens to Castagna? Because last night, Castagna looked so good. Like, if he played like that every week, he'd be up there with kind of Trent in terms of popularity. Obviously, Fofana came off early as well, around 60 minutes. So, I guess, we can clear all that up, right? There's nothing too much to be worried about.
I don't think so, no. Pereira, you would think would be back in this weekend. Rodgers spoke ahead of kickoff and said that he doesn't think he's ready to play 3 games a week. He's come off the back of a long-term injury. We've seen a bit of management over the last few months. A few false starts as well have been coming in out the side. So he obviously played in the FA Cup semi-final, and they took him out in the firing line for the West Brom game. So maybe he can handle 2 games in a week. That's the hope, of course, if you own him. And you would think it would be Luke Thomas who drops out, because both Pereira and Castagna can play on either flank. I think we saw them switch flanks in game week in the FA Cup semi-finals with Castagna on the right, where he looks better, and as he was last night. But of course, you're never quite sure when both of them are playing. They can switch on a whim. So yeah, Pereira, you'd think would come back in. No guarantees, because they've got all Brighton as well. It just depends how carefully Rodgers wants to manage him. And if I was picking a defender from scratch now, it would be Castagna over Pereira, because you just haven't got that same rotation risk. Fofana came off after an hour, but that was you've probably seen this by now. It's to do with him fasting for Ramadan. Rodgers withdrew him just to sort of spare him for the last half an hour. So there's no injury there. Maddison, of course, was starting. Now he might go the way of Pereira did on Thursday, so it could be taken out. Rodgers said ahead of kickoff that this is a chance to get him up to speed. This was his first start, I think, in around about 2 months, something like that. So he was back in after a period on the sidelines. He's been a substitute for a few weeks before that. So if he did deem 2 starts in 4 days is overkill, then someone like Perez could come back in for Maddison. But no other injuries to report, I think, from Leicester. Barnes, of course, is a few weeks away. Rodgers didn't. He gave his press conference after the West Brom game, so anything new might not come out anyway until after the deadline. But we'll keep our eyes posted on any embargoed quotes between now and 6:30.
Yeah, just really quickly on the fasting thing, because a few people I know have mentioned, or I've seen mentioned to me about like Salah, etc., are also going to be fasting. From what I recall, I don't ever recall an issue with players in general and FPL. They do it all the time, like every year is what I'm trying to say. I don't remember. Do you ever remember a player like being fully rested for like? I don't really recall any off the top of my head.
So I think Newcastle had Barnes, Cisse. I remember they were both fasting. I can't remember if Pardew ever rested one of them. But yeah, as you said, it happens every year. We've heard about this before with various players, and I think the fact that Leicester were 3-0 up at the time, if there hadn't been, I'm sure he probably would have stayed on. It was just more carefulness, I think, from Rodgers than anything else.
And the Liverpool game's early. I think Gianni said that to me earlier. It's early on the Saturday, so maybe that'll be helpful for Salah, Mane, etc. All right, let's move on to Man United. When I saw this quote, I just thought of you thinking, what's Ollie saying? Is he telling the truth or not? So he has said that Marcus Rashford hasn't trained, but I hope that he will join us tomorrow. I feel like every week Rashford has an injury and every week he plays. You thinking the same?
Yep, it's like I was thinking of the Homer Simpson when he's lying on the bed going, bed goes up, bed goes down. Take that with Rashford's flag, it keeps coming on and off every week, and we know he's going to play. I don't know how many updates there's been where he just isn't training during the week as much, and Solskjaer uses the H word, hope, which is enough for FPL to put flags on him. If he says he hopes he's going to be available, then that's obviously a 75% job, even though we all know that probability is that he's going to feature. So same again this week. Hasn't trained for a few days. An ongoing foot problem, as you all know by now. But apart from him, I think they're pretty much okay. Martial and Jones are the long-term ones. Even Eric Bailly's back, and now he had a spell in isolation. But I think that's it pretty much for a team news perspective.
Lots of people thinking about bringing in Greenwood this week. Do you think he's basically nailed to start most games now, or do you think he's more in the Diogo Jota camp of minutes?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, obviously he's in searing hot form, but they've got the Europa League coming up next week, 2-legged either side of Gameweek 34. So would he not prioritise those two fixtures? He's best 11 for those two games, and I know it's Liverpool in between, but the top 4 place is almost assured now. They're not going to catch City. Let's be realistic. Especially after City won in midweek against Villa. So is he going to start preserving bodies for Europe? And that'll be my worry with Greenwood. He'd probably start maybe what they got left, 6 games, so maybe 4 out of 6, 5 out of 6. There's just always a risk. But as you saw against who was it? He came off the bench and scored. Spurs, was it Spurs? Scored later on. He did damage off the bench, as Jota's done this season. So and at that kind of price, then maybe you can swallow the bit of rotation risk, but no denying his stats are really good as well, not just the eye test. He's racking up the shots in the box and things like that. So, and with Martial being out, that obviously helps as well with his first team chances.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of want him, but I know Dan James played the last game against Leeds. That doesn't necessarily mean anything because Pogba wasn't fit around then either. So who knows? But I agree. I didn't want to lead with the question. I thought I would just ask you because I'm kind of of the same thinking that his minutes might be managed a bit. But if you catch him at the right time, especially someone like Leeds, then still could be a good pick. Everton next before we come on to Dan Burn and co. So Calvert-Lewin has been out, but I think he's back now, right? What about everyone else?
Yeah, a great update yesterday from Ancelotti. A rare positive update. It seems to be every week he's got something wrong. All they've got left now on the treatment table, I think, is Decore and Gabamin. So we've got Calvert-Lewin back, Gomez, Bernard, Delph, Mina. So lots of players back. Whether or not they start or not, it's difficult to say because obviously not just Richarlison in decent nick previously. You got Sigurdsson who's in a good form. Rodriguez is looking sort of back to something towards his best form. So where does Calvert-Lewin fit in that? I mean, I went with a diamond in the team news prediction because they have looked good in that system whenever they played it. But he has benched Calvert-Lewin before off the back of an injury. I think was it the Merseyside derby when he was a substitute in that. So
he won the penalty, didn't he?
He did, yeah. So not like a cast iron guarantee that he returns, but they did struggle without him. I think against who was it? Chelsea, was it? Well, I can't remember who it was, but yeah, Richarlison was leading the line by himself. Looked better against Spurs, obviously. They miss his presence when he hasn't been there. So, but yeah, they've got a lot of players back, which obviously adds to the uncertainty regarding Ancelotti, who, as we mentioned before, they even rotate his keepers now and again.
Yeah, definitely someone I got my eye on is Calvert-Lewin, because obviously if we get to game week 34 and Kane's still out, then some of us might think about moving him on. And Everton have got Villa, West Ham, Sheffield United, so the fixtures aren't too bad, especially at a time when it feels like there's a bit of a lack of forward options potentially, so especially around that kind of price. So yeah, one to keep an eye on, but perhaps not to bring in for Arsenal away. All right, let's come on to Dan Burn and co, as I like to call them. I don't call them Brighton anymore. So we know that Ben White is definitely missing out because he got, I think it wasn't a straight red, was it? I think it was 2 yellows.
2 bookings, yeah.
Yeah, two yellow cards. So he is suspended. So yeah, how? I mean, I'm the only one that cares about Dan Burn, so we can ignore him. How are they looking in general?
Yeah, not too bad. I think they're all as you were in terms of injuries from last week. Lamptey and March out for the season. As you said, White was going to be suspended for 1 game. Now, there was a quote that will interest you from Potter. He said, everyone came through the game okay. There's a couple of lads that we need to be careful of, and namely Webster and Byrne, who have just come back from injuries. He mentioned Welbeck as well, although he said only to a certain extent. So we'll need to keep monitoring them. Now, you think at least one of them has to start just by process of elimination, because White's out, and even if Veltman drops into that back three with Dunk, then there's still one other slot that needs to be filled. So yeah, is it Webster? Is it Byrne? Is it both? Byrne can obviously play and has been playing as the left wing back. Webster can be the centre half, one of the 3 centre halves. But that would be obviously notes of caution. If you were thinking of either of those 2 players, I'm sure most people aren't, even though it is Sheffield United. The little words of caution from Potter, saying that because they're just back from injury, they're going to have to be handled a little bit carefully. So they have, the thing is with the left wing back position, they've got like Moda can come in and play there. He was playing there for the previous 3 game weeks, I think. So I'll be a little bit concerned if I owned Byrne, which I know you do. But you just got to hit and hope, haven't you, against Sheffield United? It's such a great fixture.
Yeah,
you're not going to be taking hits to get people in, are you, for Byrne? So
no, unfortunately, I can. Yeah, I'm just looking at your lineup here. So Veltman, right centre back, and then Gross. I've just looked. Gross hasn't missed a game since game week 19. Yeah. So even if they played Veltman there, where would Gross go? It means putting Trossard, Lallana, Basuma out, and that's unlikely, I suppose. So yeah. All right. Any fellow Dan Burn owners, we're in trouble, basically. Okay, let's go on to Man City. Not usually this far down the list, but they're a bit less interesting at the moment, I think, compared to what they have been. Obviously, like Spurs, they're playing the EFL Cup final, but unlike Spurs, they don't really have someone like Kane who's in everybody's team. So how are they looking ahead of the final, and perhaps with people looking ahead to like 34 onwards?
Yeah, even De Bruyne. I mean, there was an update on De Bruyne, but even he's not, he's not widely owned anymore in FPL, which shows you where they're at in terms of popularity in fantasy circles, what with all the rotation in the league being sewn up. So both De Bruyne and Aguero have trained today. I think they're the only 2 notable absentees. I think other than that, we've got a clean bill of health, as far as we know. So De Bruyne obviously hasn't been out very long at all. Aguero hasn't trained for 2 weeks, and they're going to make a late call on him. But obviously, by the time we get to game week 34, they've even got a Champions League tie in between then as well. So, we'll have had a number of press conferences to clear up any lingering updates. But yeah, clean bill of health going into the final.
Cool, good stuff. Let's go on to Arsenal, where I think the complete opposite is true. They got quite a few injuries, right?
They have, and illnesses as well. Obviously, Aubameyang's still out with malaria. He's not going to be involved tonight against Everton. He will return to light training, I think, either this week or beginning of next. So he's out. Lacazette's out as well. So the in form, one of the, if not the form striker in the Premier League, up with Kane over the last few months. And Iheanacho, of course. He's out with hamstring injury. Again, I think they're assessing him over the next 2 games. So that'll be the Europa League match and then game week 34 to see how he's coming along. Louise and Tierney's still out. Odegaard's going to be assessed after return to light training, so that's not full training. Now, this was on, I think, Wednesday night, this update, so obviously we may have a few developments since then. But Arteta faced the media the following day, and he was only talking about Odegaard of that quintet. So the rest are out, and it's just Odegaard who's got a chance of being back. So yeah, it could be Nketiah up front tonight. He obviously came off the bench against Fulham. Martinelli, I suppose, could play centrally as well. But I think maybe the ship sailed on Arsenal assets, even though the fixtures have been good. There's just that, as we mentioned lots of times, that week-to-week uncertainty about who's going to line up. And the performance against Fulham was basically the rubber stamp for me in terms of avoiding them, because it was just lackluster and obviously nothing left to play for. I've got Rob Holding still, but he's 4.2. He's low risk stuff, but I don't think I'll be going anywhere near Arsenal. Certainly not tonight.
Yeah, fair enough. It's like Saka, 5.1. It's so cheap.
I know.
He's there. I think he's going to be like a 7+ next year, and it's just such a shame we can't get on him at the moment. But let's see how they do in the Europa League first, I guess. If they get knocked out, they've still got a few good fixtures to come, so we'll just have to keep an eye on minutes and stuff like that. Let's come on to your boys, Newcastle. Just absolutely cruising it at the moment, playing some of the best football in the league, some might say. How are their How are their injuries looking?
Yeah, I think could we mathematically still qualify for Europe? I'm not sure. But yeah, we're fine really. I think Sir Maximin's got the okay. Came off with an ankle knock last weekend, but he's fine according to Bruce. Wilson's all right as well. He wasn't pictured in training ground images, a bit like Jota, but with much less fanfare. But he's okay. This is like a pre-organised thing where he's reducing his workload on a Thursday. So I think it might be bench duty for him again, Wilson, especially how Joelinton played last week. Other than that, I think just the usual people are out. Fraser has had a groin surgery. Darlow, knee surgery. So Lascelles and Hayden are still out as well. Fabian Schär might be back. He's back in training, but it could come a little bit too soon. But St Maximum is fit for now.
Good stuff. I think Europe's probably out of reach, although Newcastle are only 11 points behind Arsenal at this point. So I don't know who that reflects on worse, but there you go. It could catch them the way they're playing at the moment. Newcastle, that is, not Arsenal. Okay, let's go on to Burnley. I saw Popey was being talked about in the quotes. I think he's missed 2 games now, hasn't he, in a row.
Yeah.
Is he back now?
Looks that way, yeah. He's been back in training this week, and Dice said if he doesn't have any adverse reactions today, then he'll be back in contention. So he'll obviously come straight in for Peacock Farrell, providing there's no setbacks. The same 3 players are injured: Brady, Long, and Barnes. Barnes is closer to a return. He's actually joined first team training now. He's just building up fitness. And the other 2, I think, are touch and go for the rest of the season. I think that's it.
Good stuff. Who else have we got here? I'm just looking because obviously some teams will have. We've not had press conferences from Southampton or Fulham. Am I right in that? Because they're not.
Yeah.
Playing,
obviously, because they're not.
Yeah.
They're not playing Southampton and Fulham this week, so that's obviously 2 of the 4 down. Do you want me to run through the rest?
Yeah, go on. There's not too many left. I got them here. Yeah, go on.
The best I can. Yeah. Let me just bring up the page there. So Wolves, I've gone reverse order there just to confuse you. Neves is still out. His 10-day isolation period was due to be up, but apparently he's still infected to train. So he's actually fine. Like he's training at home, but Santos said today that he's not back in a group. So, and as far as we're aware, still no Jimenez. He's been training for ages. He's just waiting from the all clear from the doctors. And we know about the longer term ones. Going back to the top of the page now. So Villa, have we covered Villa?
No, yeah, Villa, yeah.
Yeah, Villa. Cash is obviously banned. 1 match suspension for those 2 bookings. Grealish is out, unsurprisingly. Trezeguet and Sanson as well. So yeah, you think El Mohamed right back. I know he has played concert there before. And Wesley could be back. The Leicester spotted Wesley. He's been in training for a while. He's played for the under-23s a couple of times as well, and he could be back for this. Obviously on the bench, just back up for Watkins. Palace, we heard from yesterday, Hodgson. They've had a long break, 2 weeks, over 2 weeks, and they've got back a few players as a result of that. So Schlupp, Tompkins, and Sacco all back in training. MacArthur's the only real absentee in terms of he's injured, although Ferguson and Wickham injury by the sound of it, but training and not yet in full training. So they haven't rejoined their teammates on the training ground, and they look poised to miss out as well. Cahill's a fresh doubt. He's got a minor problem according to Hodgson, but he was hopeful of his recovery for that game against Leicester. And I think that's it. Yeah, Batshuayi's back from eligibility. So I don't think many people are looking at Palace, but they might be by the time they
Yeah.
double game weeks come along.
Good stuff. Just to cover them off, I think the only 2 teams which I don't think many people are interested in did we do Sheffield United and West Brom?
We didn't. Good point. Yeah, 2. We didn't. They were at the back of my mind. Sheffield United, same again, I think. Yeah, McBurney, Sharp, McConnell out, Sana Berger, and Robinson training. Robinson's a bit behind Berger, who is Heckenbottom said he was hopeful of seeing him before the end of the season, so that suggests he's not going to be ready for Brighton. But he's been building up mids on the training ground and optimistic of him being involved. I think between now and Gameweek 38, it's just when that is. But I think that's it from a Sheffield United perspective. If anyone cares, West Brom. Well, actually, we didn't really hear from Allardyce because they were in action last night.
Of course,
so this was a bit like Rodgers. He didn't give a stat comment. In fact, I think I might have seen some quotes filtering through, but no obvious injury concerns from last night, I don't think. The Robinson substitution at half-time was tactical to stem the flow of goals. Snodgrass wasn't involved. He'd had an epidural previously to deal with a long-standing problem, but there's no word on him. But yeah, in terms of fresh stuff, I don't think there's anything.
Good stuff. Just really quick, I don't suppose Dean Smith gave any indication of Grealish timeout, no?
I've not seen it all the way through.
He just gave a straight answer, didn't he, really?
He did. He just said he was out. Same with Trezeguet and Sanson as well. But he said before the Man City game, which was on Wednesday, that he wasn't even back on the grass. So, yeah, you're looking at, Gameweek 34 even looks optimistic at this point. Given that they probably rushed him back. Smith even admitted that. It was ahead of the Fulham game, and then he obviously wasn't involved in that because he had a setback. So again, a bit like Heckenbottom before, he's confident you'll see him before the end of the season, but whether that means final day run out off the bench or anything before that, we'll see.
Fair enough. Good stuff. That's everything covered. Obviously, I see some people in the chat asking about Liverpool. We did Liverpool right at the start. You can just rewind if you want to listen to that. And obviously, give it a like if you've enjoyed it and hit that subscribe button. Any other quotes that come out, we'll obviously have them up on FF Scout. There's a team news section as well on the website. If you've not already checked that out, you can go and see that Burn is not in the predicted lineup, which is very sad news. But there we go. Do give it a like and hit that subscribe button. Neale, thank you for joining me as always.
Thank you, Andy. Yep, see you next week.
Good luck, everyone. And I think it's another Friday deadline next week. So we will see you same time as we always do to talk through that. Good luck this week, and we'll see you soon.